Hello all, Rick here with the next part of the early Federation series exploring the Romulan War. This video covers what the Andorians, Tellarites and Vulcans got up to for the most part. While not overly focused on in the books of that era, they nevertheless made significant impacts on the war. The Earth-Romulan War was so named by the Federation in later years because although the entire coalition of planets was engaged against the Star Empire, the focused target had been Earth. Nonetheless, both Tellar and Andoria made significant strides and sacrifices to defend its coalition neighbour as defined in their Mutual Defence Pact, especially after Vulcan pulled out of active aggression. Earth's first encountered alien friends, the Vulcans, had learned of the Romulans' heritage and wished to avoid walking the same path that those who marched beneath the Raptor's wings did. This came over the objections of Ambassador Soval, who argued that the Romulans' origin gave Vulcan an even greater culpability in the war. As mentioned in a prior video of the series, the Vulcans did continue to lend support in the form of intelligence, but they also began a rather sneaky action, explaining which requires a bit of setup first. Romulan space borders the Harkona system in the Cyvalorum sector block. As with all of the Star Empire's neighbours, the Romulans mistrusted them and frequently spied deep into their space. The praetor of the Empire at the start of the war was Tellarites, the dude the warbird was named after, and until his later years he had been a respected leader of the Senate. It was under his administration that Velas's Vulcan regime came to power and steered the Vulcans away from Surak's teachings, as well as the creation of the drone ship and most of the other problems fixed by the Enterprise crew. However, in his age, Tellarites developed an illness that many suspect led to the more obsessive orders he issued, driven by a realization of his mortality. He became concerned with leaving some iconic achievement as a legacy, realising that he may die before the conclusion of the Earth-Romulan War, and therefore his successor would receive all the credit. So instead, he began pressuring his generals to attack the Harkona, a smaller, easier target, but naturally many of his underlings did not want to split military forces on a two-pronged war, engaged as they were with the Coalition. Nonetheless, it was a command from the Emperor, so eventually a task force was sent into Harkonan space, where it was promptly destroyed. This was because Vulcan had been sending supplies in secret to Harkona, so that they could both defend themselves and maybe alleviate some of the pressure on the Coalition. Underhanded, but clever. As mentioned, these activities were carried out in secret from even parts of Vulcan's own government, so as far as the Coalition was concerned, Vulcan simply was not fulfilling its end of the pact, which it kinda wasn't. Fortunately, the Andorians and Tellarites made the decision to stick by Starfleet and present a united front, although one sorely missing the Vulcans' faster vessels. Part of this was due to the fact that the Star Empire attacked the Andorian colony world of Thralvia 4, where the Romulans' telecapture weapon managed to usurp then destroy the Imperial Guard ship, the Cathelem Crotus. The NX-01 Enterprise managed to recover 14 survivors. A month earlier, the Tellarite ship, the Miract, a mighty vessel, had been destroyed by the same system, opting for self-destruct over capture. Following this, the human colony on Deneva that the Miract had been guarding was lost to the Star Empire, the first planet to fall to Earth's enigmatic enemy, along with several more Daedalus-class ships and Tellarite vessels. This led to General Shran of the Andorian Imperial Guard to return to active duty to help lead future battles. It was in no small part due to his emphatic and appraising opinion of humanity that the Andorians stuck by Starfleet for as long as they did. There was also a meeting between Ambassador Graal of Tellar and Minister Thoris of Andor, where they discussed findings concerning the telecapture weapon, findings that made it clear that their vessels were very susceptible to it. However, each species was keeping those findings highly classified and working on their own defences. That is, until Graal leaked the Tellarites' research to Thoris, who underhandedly passed it on to Starfleet researchers at Alpha Centauri. Yay, surreptitious sharing. I've already alluded to the Battle of Andoria. That took place in early 2156, and I'd love to elaborate, but there's not much else to add to it. Suffice to say, it made Andoria even more wary of defending its own space. Events continued in the Romulans' favour until June 2156, which led to a substantial shift in the war, and not one wholly for the better. By this time, Starfleet had upgraded the Daedalus class with NX-style warp cores and managed to complete construction of the NX-05 Atlantis and 06 Endeavour. Unfortunately, the NX-02 Columbia was now missing in action with all hands. This is because it jumped over to a different series of books in the Star Trek Destiny timeline, but that's a whole nother beta canon tale. Within the Star Empire, the Tellarites had finally passed away peacefully in a fiery accidental shuttle crash which in no way was orchestrated by General Valdor to dispose of the gradually maddening Emperor. Although, without the Emperor, Valdor was actually able to do his job without interference. Having recently lost Berengaria to Starfleet, he set in motion a long, feint attack that ultimately earned Romulus its most major victory. The Star Empire are xenophobic space elves with Game of Thrones as required reading, it seems. Anyway, Valdor launched a series of simultaneous strikes, beginning with the joint Andorian Tellarite fleet stationed at Altair 6, a human colony world. The battle only lasted 10 minutes, and the Romulan ships were repelled, although there were heavy casualties on the Andorian and Tellarite ships, while the humans lost only 2 vessels. At the same time, in the Kappa Fornaxis system, the Coalition amassed its largest joint fleet yet, with both Commodore Archer and General Shran in the chairs of the Enterprise and the IGS Waitan respectively. This fleet pushed into Deneva and successfully took it back from the Romulans with space battles and ground combat. Just a side note, it is mentioned that the Romulans somehow did not leave behind even a single body for anyone to pore over, so as unlikely as it sounds, their appearance was still a mystery to the Coalition. Okay then, not one soldier unmasked a Romulan in the firefight, but okay. The battle, however, cost the humans 3 Daedalus ships, the Adirondack, the Kearsarge, and the Shepherd, while their alien allies lost almost half their fleet. Of the 33 ships that entered the fray, 11 had been Starfleet and 22 Andorian or Tellarite. This was another great loss that Andor and Tellar had sustained on behalf of defending a human colony world. But this was not the end of the bad news, as while the coalition of planets had been taking back Deneva and repelling an attack at Altair, the main Romulan fleet had snuck its way to Tau Ceti 4, busted its way through the defensive coalition fleet, and overwhelmed the planet. They bombarded it from orbit and made a permanent base on its surface, leading to a Romulan foothold deep in Coalition space, only 11 light-years from Earth. It would not surprise me to learn that Valdor gave the orders to deliberately target Andorian and Tellarite ships to drive up their casualties while defending human worlds. Either way, this all led to both Andoria and Tellar Prime re-evaluating their staunch defence of Earth and her colonies. Despite the efforts of voices like Shran, the 2 worlds decided to withdraw from the Defence Pact in favour of securing their own worlds. This led to the loss of their presence at both Sol and Alpha Centauri, and this in turn left Starfleet with no option but to pull all ships back to Sol to protect Earth. And as Valdor's pièce de résistance, the very next day, just as Vulcan was beginning to consider entering the war to help at last, after no small pressuring from Ambassador Savol, a Romulan assassin detonated a bomb at Mount Seleia. This destroyed the Catric Ark of Surak, removing his living Katra from the Vulcans, seemingly forever. Such a blow placed Vulcan into its own lockdown and prevented them from joining the battles, effectively isolating Earth altogether. So, in 2 days, Valdor orchestrated a plan that isolated Earth from its allies, and such a stroke had been built on the gradual whittling of the goodwill from Andoria and Tellar towards Earth, followed by the incitement of paranoia in the Vulcan people. This covers the war's progress in the novel Beneath the Raptor's Wing, and leaves Starfleet in a very precarious state, I'm going to continue reading this series to bring you the apocryphal lore of Star Trek, even though we all know how it ends. I do wish we got a bit more focus on the rest of the Coalition outside of Starfleet and Vulcan, so I think I'll just have to make a video concerning those species' early contributions to the formation of the Federation. I just don't want to miss anything first. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you next time for a lore, gameplay or review one, and until then I've been Rick, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.